Dear students, welcome back to the online sessions on embedded systems. In today's session, we'll try to deal some of the important concepts which are there in the RTOS, known as real-time operating systems. So in real-time operating systems, we are going to discuss about the tasks, semaphores, okay, schedulers, and all these concepts, right? So why we have to discuss on the OS known as real-time operating systems? There are two types of operating systems, as we already know, that is known as general purpose operating system and real-time operating systems. General purpose means we mean by saying Windows operating system of version Windows Ultimate 7, Windows 8, Windows 9, Windows 10. All these are what called general purpose operating systems. There is one more operating system known as the real-time operating systems. So these real-time operating systems are used by the embedded systems. Now, what is the difference between the real-time operating system and ordinary operating system? The real-time operating system has to perform its operations based on the deadlines. That means it has to complete the task in the intended or predefined time. Whereas when it comes to the ordinary operating system, it is not so. So that is the main difference between the real-time and also the general purpose operating system. So real time means what? The operating system is going to execute its operations based on the predefined time to meet the deadlines. That is what called a real time operating systems. So embedded system is also going to be known as a specific digital system to perform a specific task in a given time, is basically known as an embedded system. So therefore, in order to design a sophisticated embedded system, we will be using the real-time operating system in the embedded systems, right? So that is why we normally go with the real-time operating systems in the embedded system. So we know what is the basics of operating systems because you're all the computer people. So you'll be knowing about the utilization of the operating system, usage of the operating system. That is why I'm not discussing about that part of RTOS, which is there in fact in the syllabus, which is the importance of the operating system in the embedded system. So what are all the operating systems in general purpose is normally performing? Same kind of operations are always going to be there in the embedded system OS as well. Okay. So operating system is normally done at the kernel level, whereas at user level, we are going to have the interfaces using the APIs or interfaces. The user is normally going to interact with the kernel with the help of the using the operating systems, or with the help of the operating system, the user is going to interact with the kernel. That means there is going to be an interface between the first layer and the kernel layer is going to be the OS, operating system. On hardware, you're going to have the operating system. On operating system, you're going to have the user interfaces. So user is going to interact with the hardware using user interfaces. User interfaces in turn interact with the operating system. Operating system in turn interact with the actual hardware of the system. Okay, that is what the basic architectural view of the operating systems. So now we'll try to discuss about the concepts which are there in the real-time operating systems, right? Which is going to be our unit number 4, and all these parts, some of them you already know because you know the basics of operating systems. So that means same thing will be coming over here, like tasks, semaphores, right? Preemption, right? All these things are the concepts which are too basic, but specifically used in the real-time operating systems. So let us try to discuss about RTOS now. Now, why we are going to use the real-time operating systems? So why we are going to use real-time operating system means what? It is going to simplify the design process by splitting the application code into separate tasks. Now, what do you mean by a task? What do you mean by a process? The job done by a desktop operating system is known as a process. In general, we simply call it as a process. And the job done by the real-time OS, the job done by the real-time OS is known as a task. So obviously, the real-time operating system is going to perform multiple tasks in a given time. That means The real-time OS is normally going to perform many tasks simultaneously. That is the great advantage. Now, why it is performing many tasks simultaneously? Because that is the main feature of the RTOS, using which we can simply split the application into different tasks or separate tasks. That is the main use of going for the RTOS operating systems. Now, what is the job of operating system? It has to manage the resources of the computer. All the operating systems are going to really manage, doing the managerial work of giving the resources to the computer. That means more or less I can say it is the real-time RTOS is to manage the resources of the computer such that a particular operation in precise, that means the particular operation is going to get executed in precise time period. That means a amount of time period that it occurs. That means it has to really perform its task in a precise time period. That is what called basically working of the RTOS. That means all the real-time computing is normally used where system correctness not only depends on the correctness of logical result, but also on the result delivery time. That means every task has to be completed in a given time. That is called delivery time. So if it is really performing by meeting these deadlines, then we simply call it as a real-time operating system. So real-time operating system should complete its task by meeting the deadlines. That means if deadlines comes into the picture, then it is known as a real-time operating system. If you remove deadline, just say that it is going to perform the task by ensuring the correctness of logical result, then it is called as general purpose operating system definition. Okay, we already know this, but anyway, we are discussing as part of the RTOS now. Now, what is the meaning of meeting deadlines? Another meaning of deadlines is something like the RTOS should be a deterministic under all conditions. Whatever may be the conditions of the atmosphere or around the system, the output should be deterministic output. That is what called a real-time operating systems. So in a lift system, for example, while the lift is getting closed, if somebody is trying to enter, then the lift should get open. The lift door, that means whenever the lift doors are getting closed, if somebody want to enter in that time period, then if the doors are still going to get closed without looking into the human being entering into the lift, then he's going to get crushed in the lift doors. That's what we have listened from so many occasions in the news, that this children, that children has simply got stuck in the lift and they simply died in their lift. Okay, that is what now it is not a deterministic signal. If you want to make it performing well under idle conditions, whatever may be the condition, what is the condition? When the lift doors are getting closed, somebody entering into the lift, okay, is a real-time activity. That means immediately the door should get open, just to safeguard the life of the human being, right? So in our express trains, in our metro trains, if you see, when the doors are getting closed, you should not enter at that moment exactly. If you enter, you get crushed. That is a danger there. That is the reason why maybe every 10 minutes, the metro train will be coming onto the platform. So that means the frequency is more. Since the frequency is more, the people don't rush of going into the train when the time got lapsed. Okay, so that is what one of the thing which we can have. Now let us take the example of a lift door. When the human being is, when the doors are getting closed, when the human being is entering at the same time, door should get closed. That means the RTOS has become simply deterministic under all the conditions. Under all the conditions. That means when the lift is getting closed, if some human being is entering into it, then if it is behaving as if like it has to behave under all the conditions, we say that the RTOS is really working fine. Okay, that means it should be totally determined. That means the work should be totally determined work it has to do. That means nowadays these automated lifts are really working because of the real-time operating systems, because of the embedded systems utilization in the lifts. Right, we are making the lifts going to be automated. That means if the lift is not working exactly at that instance of time, what should happen? That also it has to perform the actions, it should perform the activity, it should inform to the end user that lift got halted and it should not perform the task at all. Okay, that means it has to do its predefined task in a given time compulsorily. It has to meet the deadlines. The system should not get halted in between because of some catastrophic situations. So that is what real-time operating system all about. So real-time systems, that means any system which performs this time-limited jobs, that means time-bound jobs, meeting deadlines job is called a real-time system, which uses a real-time operating system, of course, in which missing a deadline is catastrophic. That means missing a deadline is catastrophic. What does it mean? What is the meaning of catastrophic? Disastrous. The real-time operating system or embedded system should not miss the deadline. If it really misses the deadline, means what? It is known as a catastrophic situation and are called as hard real-time systems. Usually hard real-time systems can miss the catastrophic situations. It is all, it is going to be a design issue. Or it's going to be a design issue. If you want the lift doors to get close to whatsoever may be the reasons, then it is purely a hard real-time system. Okay, so if systems allow deadlines to be missed at times and still can be recovered, they are called as soft real-time systems. So that means closing the door is the activity. If it is missed because of some obstacle, it is going to get halted for a amount of predefined time. Then once again, the activity is simply going to get started and it's going to get completed. That is what called soft real-time systems. That means soft real-time systems means what? Simply enabled by the programming especially, whereas hard real-time systems are hard-coded type of the systems. Right. So wherever human being is involved, we always prefer the soft real-time systems. We never go to the hard real-time systems because hard real-time systems will never miss the deadline. So missing deadline in hard real-time is nothing but a catastrophic situation which should not arise. It is going to be a disaster. So catastrophic situation is nothing but a disaster kind of a situation. So task is the basic building block of the software written under the RTOS. Now we have in the syllabus starting with tasks and task states. So I brought you the concept of RTOS before we discuss about task. Why? Because the RTOS process or RTOS implementation is normally been fulfilled by using the task. That is why RTOS has been brought into picture. Before I speak about task, I spoke about RTOS because task is nothing but part of the RTOS. That is why I just introduced some part of the operating system known as real-time operating system. So task is nothing but, it is nothing but the basic building block of the software written under the RTOS. That means we build the real-time operating system based on the tasks that is going to get implemented or executed in the embedded system, right? So therefore, if there is no task, there is no RTOS. If there is no RTOS, obviously there is no embedded system, right? That is why task is that important for us. So task is known as the job performed by the RTOS to perform some activity is nothing but a task. That means task is nothing but the job performed by the RTOS, by the operating system, okay, in executing or implementing a event is known as a task. So therefore I call it as a basic building block of the software used in the RTOS. So in order to perform a task, it has to undergo various states. Actually, there are 4 states, but in general, you're going to have 3 states. 4 states are going to be running state, ready state, blocked state, and ideal state. Okay, most primitive states are going to be 3, called as running state, ready state, and blocked state. So the tasks are going to normally going to be there in either one of these three states in general. That is going to be running state, ready state, and blocked state. There are three states of working. Now we already know what is the meaning of running state. When a microprocessor is executing an instruction, we say that it is running. It is in a running state. That means when a microprocessor is executing a task, we say that the task is in the running state. That is what the point here. Ready means what? The task presently is in the queue. It is and is waiting for a CPU to give a chance for it to get executed. That is called a ready state. I mean, it is totally ready to get implemented, but only thing is that it is waiting for a CPU to give a time. Blocked state means what? It is totally in the inactive state. Totally inactive state. The task is totally in the inactive state. And whether the microprocessor is free or not free, the task is in the blocked state. That means not active state. That is called a blocked state in general. So therefore, running state means what? The microprocessor is executing the instruction that makes up this particular task. That means a task is implemented by a set of instructions. So when the instructions of a task is being implementing in the microprocessor, we say that the task is simply running. So in a single process systems, only one task is running at a time. That means if you are going with a single processor in your operating system, if you are having only one microprocessor or one microcontroller put together a processor. So if you are going to use a single processor systems, then only one task will be in the running state at a given time. Obviously, at a given time, there could be multiple tasks for a microprocessor to perform, but at a single instance of time, it is going to run only single task. Next is ready state, means that some other task is running. Some other task is running, but the present task has things to do. It could do if the processor becomes available. And therefore, this task will simply go into the queue, expecting for a chance from the CPU. It expects CPU time so that it can get executed. The next one is blocker state. This task has nothing to do right now, even if the microprocessor becomes available. So therefore, tasks get into this state because they are waiting for some other external event to happen. So it is going to expect an event to happen. Until that time, this task is simply going to be inactive, but still it is there in the process. It is there in the operating system, there in the queue, but it is not active. It becomes active until the necessity comes for it. Until some event coming from the external world comes to it, it never really come and react. That is what called something like, blocker state. So say an example, if you take an example, a task that handles data coming from a network will have nothing to do when there is no data. Imagine that there is some task inside the operating system which is going to get executed once after we get some external data into the microprocessor. Now that task will be totally in the blocked state until the data is coming onto the data bus lines. If data is not coming in data bus lines, definitely it will be in the blocked state. Okay. Now data won't come all the time, right? Whenever the external device has got something to send to the microprocessor, then only the data will come. Otherwise, continuously data won't come, right? Whenever there is a necessity, then only the data will simply come into the microprocessor or a processor. That time, the blocked state will become alive. That blocked state will simply go to ready state. From ready state, it will simply go to the running state. So like that, it will be simply going. That means, what is the state transitions here? What happens? State transitions. A task which is there in ready state will go to running state. A task which is there in the blocked state will go to ready state and then running state. A task in the running state may go to ready state. A task in the running state may go to blocked state. Right. So this is how the transitions taken place from one type of state to the another type of state. So these are the various states. Now see, this is the one which we can normally show. A running task may simply go into the blocked state. A running start may simply go into the ready state. From ready state, it will come to the running state. But from blocked state, it will go to the ready state and then comes to the running state. So this is how the basic operations which we normally going to perform. And ready state may go into blocked state. Blocked state may come into ready state. So both way it normally going to happen. So this is how the basic state diagram for the tasks. All right. So the next is scheduler. This is one of the important software program used in the RTOS called as a scheduler, which is nothing but heart and soul of any operating system. So the scheduler is known as heart and soul of the operating system, because real time means what? Everything has to be time bounded operations. You should perform time bounded activities. That is called scheduling, right? So that is why scheduler is used. Scheduler is an important software component used in the RTOS. If at all you want to increase the speed drastically, there is no software involved at all. We can have hardware scheduler also. But we don't prefer that. We prefer only software scheduling so that we can simply modify the program in the future. So this piece of operating system decides which of the ready tasks has a right to use the processor at a given time. So scheduler decides which processor should come from ready state to the running state. Some of the common scheduler algorithms used in the mainstream operating systems are, what are the algorithms? First in, first out. That is the basic queue algorithm, first in, first out. Shortest job first, and a round robin fashion. Round robin fashion means what? Something like a ring topology. One after the other in sequence in a circle. That's called round robin fashion. Next one is shortest job first. Now the job that means the time required to complete a task is predefined in RTOS. So whichever job is going to take very less time, that job is simply going to give highest priority. That is what one of the type of the algorithm which we use in the scheduler. It is not a preferable kind of algorithm, but still under certain circumstances, applications, we normally use this. It all based on the applications. We simply use the appropriate scheduling algorithms like FIFO, shortest job first, round robin fashion. Now, how does the scheduler really decides about the time period on when to execute which task? That is dependent on the preemptive processing of the RTOS. That is known as preemptive process. So with a preemptive RTOS, all the time critical events are handled as quickly and efficiently as possible. So this preemptive algorithms are normally going to manage with the state transitions. So state transitions are managed by the preemptive RTOS events. So preemptive RTOS events are normally going to manage with the transition of the states. That is the important point. So an RTOS allows one to make better use of system resources by providing valuable services such as, now by using what services, the RTOS is going to share the resources to multiple tasks. Say task is totally a software dependent. Now, so when it is going to be there like software dependent, I can have n number of tasks. So n number of tasks has to use the same shared resources. Say for example, display unit. N number of tasks want to display its data by using a single shared resource known as display unit. Now, how does this particular task? So it can share the resource of display by using different services provided by the RTOS known as semaphores. These are there in the syllabus: semaphores, mailboxes, queues, okay, time delays, timeouts, etc. So on and so forth. There are many types of services using which we access. We mean the sense the RTOS makes the task to access the shared resource. Now, in RTOS, I was talking to you continuously. A deadline-driven scheduling mechanism is the ideal one in RTOS. So in RTOS operating systems, what is so important? deadline driven scheduling mechanism is very important in RTOS. So for an ideal RTOS, it has to meet the deadlines. So who will really do the task? It is the scheduler. So a good embedded RTOS should have a provision for a lot of priority levels. That means scheduling means what? By the name scheduling, we can allot priority to various tasks based on its levels of priorities, so that all the tasks won't come at a time to access the resource. That means there are thousands of vehicles, heavy vehicles, want to go through a single road. If all the vehicles come at a time, traffic jam takes place, collision takes place, so much of disturbance. If vehicles coming onto the heavy vehicles coming onto the single road is simply scheduled based on some criteria, then what happens? There won't be any traffic jam. Based on the priority, we release the vehicles to move onto the single road. If chief minister vehicle comes, if prime minister vehicle is coming, convoy is coming, then what happens? The policeman is going to simply halt all other vehicles until the convoy simply passes the road. That means it is an emergency kind of a thing. If ambulance is coming at our back, so being a human beings, what we will do? We simply give a route to that vehicle because it is a high priority task. The resource known as road has to be given to that particular vehicle. That is how important. That means what? That is done by using scheduling mechanism in the computer system. So the actual process of changing from one task to another is known as context switching. The process of changing from one task to another task is known as context switching. And which one, that particular entire thing is known as preemptive processing. Okay, so using preemption, that means preemption is the one using which we decide about which process should get into first access to the, or getting access, a process of getting a task, the task of getting access to the resource is decided by the preemptive processing. And that process of changing one task to another task. See, every task is going to have states: running state, ready state, blocked state. So one task to another task, that is called context switching. So that means changing of one state to another state is done by preemptive processing. Okay, there is a small difference here, but anyway, we use them interchangeably, so no need to get confused with it. The tasks are going to get preempted, the states in the task are going to get preempted, so all that combinations will be there. But in general, I can say from task to task switching is called context switching. In the task, state to state transitions is done by the preemptive processing. So for real-time operating systems, the context switch should take only the bare minimum of time because it determines the response time. Now, the context switching should be as less as possible. Why? Because the real-time operating system has to meet the deadlines. Therefore, there should be very, very less time given for task transitions known as context switching. So for context switching, very less time has been allotted. So next one is tasks and data handling in the task. Each task has its own private data, which includes register values, program counter, and stack. What do you mean by data? Task is going to have its own private data, such as register values, program counter, and stack. Data means what? All other data like global data, static data, initialized data, uninitialized data. So much of data is shared among the tasks, is called a data for the task to be used. Okay. So we discussed about a concept called class in the OOPS concepts. When you come to the OOPS concepts, in OOPS, we're going to have the encapsulation concept. So because of encapsulation, what we'll do now, we'll keep the data totally private. So whoever want to access the data of that particular class has to access the data of the class if he knows about the member function of that particular class. Directly, no one can access the secured data. That means, therefore, that is known as a task now. That means here also, a task is going to have its own private data. It cannot be accessed directly by other task. It has to be accessed by the task via the member function only, via the member function only. That is the important point here. So therefore, this is what the task and the data. Now, next one is, now let us try to understand about the shared data problem. What do you mean by the shared data problem? A situation like what is explained below lead to many of the shared data problems. What is the situation here? There are, imagine that there are two tasks, task 1 and task 2. So the task 1 and task 2 are going to use the same common area. Say for example, task 1 want to read data using the readx function from the memory location. It releases this function. Now, before this data read from this shared data element, what happens? Task 2 has write some data. This is W, writing data, write some data into the register or data unit or stacks. Now, this data is going to be from the registers, data is going to be from the stacks, data is going to be some other memory locations as such. Whatever it is going to be a data that under consideration for us. So before the readx reads the data has been written by the task 2 in the shared resource, in the shared memory. Then what happens in the task 1? Task 1 will receive an error data. Task 1 presumes that the data what it is intended is something, but what it got is something. So for task 1, it is nothing but erroneous data. Now this has to be, when a task 1 is using the shared resource, no other task should use the shared resource. No other task means what? Like task 2, task 3, task 4, like this, so many tasks we can have in the real-time operating system. So all these tasks should not use the shared data. So due to shared data problem, what happens? The task is normally going to retrieve the erroneous data, right? So this is what the shared data problem. So in order to address the shared data problem or to solve the shared data problem, we are going to use a concept known as semaphores. We're going to use the concept known as semaphores, very important concept. So this is known as task synchronization. That means more than one task want to access the same resource. Now utilize the accessing of the shared resource by many tasks has to be synchronized. Therefore, we call it as a task synchronization. And for this particular job to perform, various tasks has to perform some communication. That is known as inter-task communication. So task synchronization and inter-task communication has to be compulsorily performed to avoid or to solve the problem of shared data or shared resource. So there are several tools available in RTOS to enable the inter-task communication and inter-task communication and task synchronization. What are the methods? Semaphores, whatever there in the underline is there in the syllabus for us now. Semaphores, mailboxes, or people call it as, some people call it as message mailboxes, message queues, or just queues. Okay, event flags. Event flags is not there in syllabus. So whatever there in syllabus, we just discussed now. Semaphores are inter-task communication tool or tools. Semaphores are known as inter-task communication tools used to protect the shared resources or shared data resources. So a task can call take semaphore and release semaphore functions. That means semaphores are handled by the internally by subtasks known as take semaphore, release semaphore. If one task has called take semaphore and has not called release semaphore to release it, then any other task that calls take semaphore will simply get blocked until the first task calls the release semaphore. That means same situation now in this diagram now. If the, say for example, there is going to be a coin here, a single coin is put in a register memory. So if task 1 want to use the shared resource, what the task 1 will do? Task 1 will simply take this coin, from this register by calling a function known as take semaphore. Semaphore is taken, coin is with the task 1. Now task 2, first of all, task 1 released this readx function. Now what the task 2 will do now? Task 2 will send a request to the shared data. Before it sends request shared data, it looks into the coin. It looks into the coin known as semaphore coin. So it looks into the temporary data for semaphore coin. Now coin is not available. Since coin is not available, task 2 is going to be in the waiting state. It will be in the waiting state until it gets a coin. So when the task 1 will release the coin, once the task 1 will get its intended data, then only task 1 is going to release that particular coin by calling a function known as release semaphore. Once release semaphore is done, coin which is there with task 1 will simply go and sit in the semaphore memory. Now after coin goes here, this task 2 comes into ready state, and then it goes into the running state. It takes a coin available. Now once task 2 is writing some data and shared resource, no other task known as task 1 and task 3 can access the same data, because whoever want to access, they have to access the common semaphore, that is the coin. If task 2 is communicating with shared data, coin is with task 2. So whichever task want to communicate, it has to first take the coin, but coin is not here. So this is what the mechanism which we normally going to have it in the semaphores. Very simple activity just to synchronize the shared resource utilizations. So that means semaphores can also act as a signaling device for synchronization. Using flags, we can always going to give a signal to other devices about what is happening inside the system. So when using semaphores, one should ensure that it does not lead to priority inversion and deadly embrace. Yeah, this is the serious issue now. When using semaphores, there could be a situation where a deadlock situation may come across, called as deadly embrace situation. Deadlock means what? More than one task want to use the shared resources which they cannot really access. So in that process, the two tasks will be totally indefinite in the waiting state until they get a shared resource, but they never get that. So since they never get that, it will simply go into the infinite loop. So in that process, the entire operating system is simply going to get halted. So that is what called deadline, something like, dead zone, deadly embrace kind of a thing, deadlock situation. So some RTOSes have a method called as priority inheritance method to tackle this deadlock situations. So deadlock has to be tackled. So how do we tackle the deadlock? Mutex is going to handle deadlock very well. So that means Mutex is a very effective and efficient kind of a semaphore process. Okay, that means more than one can really going to achieve this. Let us see another kind of a the inter-task communication tool called as mailboxes. Now, what is a mailbox? Somebody want to send a message to you. What that fellow will do? He will simply send a message in your mailbox. Now, once you open your mailbox, you can access from the mailbox. Something like a post box. Somebody will put into it, somebody will take from that. That means two tasks are involved here. One task is going to post the message, place the message. Another task is going to retrieve the message. Same thing is happening in the mailbox for a task. It means creating a mailbox is something like creating a memory area for a task for two or more tasks to operate. Once again, it is going to be shared resource kind of a mechanism. So messages are sent to a task using kernel services called as message mailboxes or simply mailboxes. So mailbox is basically a pointer size variable. Tasks or interrupt service routines can deposit and retrieve the messages through the mailboxes. So through the mailboxes, we can simply deposit and receive the messages. Using the mailboxes, we can simply store the message and receive the messages. Next one is queue. Array of mailboxes is simply known as a queue in general, right? Now I want to have more number of elements to be seated in the mailbox. That means many different tasks can able to store, can able to send its information in the mailbox. If at all it has to be done, it is known as a message queues. Now, whatever mailboxes we have in our mail IDs is known as message queues. So many mails will be coming. By the time when you simply open your mailbox, you see many messages. Why it is so? Because all of them are simply there in the queue. Now, whatever there in the queue, all of them are simply been displayed in our mailbox. So it is simply going to be called as array of mailboxes. So we got array of mailboxes. So this message queues is used to send one or more messages to a task. That means one or more mailboxes, known as array of mailboxes. Therefore, we call basically this queue. We call basically queue as an array of the mailboxes. Tasks and interrupt service routines can send and retrieve messages to the queue through services provided by the kernel. That means every task has to be given provision to access this particular queue. So extraction of messages from the queue may follow FIFO or LIFO fashion. So how do we extract messages from the queue? First in, first out, or last in, first out. So these are the various mechanisms we use in the queues. Then basically what semaphores internally will do are used to implement any of the following operations. As a user level, what semaphore is doing? Semaphores are used to access the shared resource more effectively. This is at a user level. Now coming to the engineer level, programmer level. So programmer level means what? It is normally used to implement control access to shared resource. It means somewhat internals of the shared resource operations. Control access to the shared resource, signal the occurrence of an event, allows two tasks to synchronize their activities. When I say two, it is going to be two or more than two is nothing but two here. Okay, two means it is more than one. So all these things are nothing but the various operations implemented by the semaphores. Now there are four types of semaphores known as binary semaphores, counting semaphores, resource semaphores, mutex semaphores. Among all this, mutex semaphore is so popular. Okay, the reason we'll just discuss now. First of all, binary. Binary means what? 0, 1. No, binary means what is the meaning of binary? It is going to have only two states, 0 and 1. Two states. That means it has to use two function calls known as take semaphore function and release semaphore function. That's all. No other extra functions will be provided to the binary semaphore. Then next one is counting semaphore. Counting means what? Semaphores that can be taken multiple times. So same, that means multiple times, same set of operations I want to implement, just like a loop operation. This is called counting semaphores. Some binary semaphore, if I kept in a loop, it becomes like a counting semaphore. Just increase the memory, put an array, and just use this counting semaphore mechanism, and same set of instructions are simply going to get executed repeatedly. That is what counting semaphores. So resource semaphores useful for shared data problems, just now we discussed. The most ideal one is going to be called as resource semaphores. Then mutex semaphore known as mutual exclusion semaphore. Mutual exclusion, this concept we have seen in the probability theory already. Similar kind of thing is there here. Mutually exclusive means what? These two are going to be orthogonal to each other. Only these two will be involved. No other things are involved in the process. So here mutex semaphore automatically deals with the priority inversion problem by suspending all interrupts. So whatever the interrupts that are really coming from scheduler or any other hardware or software interrupts, whatever it is, all of them are simply going to get suspended before this mutex is normally going to get implemented. So if mutex is implemented, then 100% the shared resource is going to be more effective. When it comes to binary, it won't suspend all the interrupts. Since it won't suspend all the interrupts, the problem of priority inversion may arise. Priority inversion means what? There could be some priority before application of an interrupt. Now, as and when the interrupt comes from the external device to the processor, then the priorities are going to change. That is, priority inversion takes place. Now that can be avoided if you don't want anybody to interfere in between, then this mutex has to be implemented. Okay. So these are all the various kinds of tasks which we're going to perform inside the RTOS. So semaphores and shared data, generally only 3 operations to be performed on a semaphore in general. Whatever the semaphore is normally going to perform 3 operations: initialization, waiting, and signaling. So initialization means what? Creating. It has to create semaphore, and waiting means what? Called pending, and a signal means what? Called posting the data onto the memory unit. So the initial value of semaphore must be provided when the semaphore is initialized. Initial means what? Starting value. Say if you say int I is equal to 1, means what? Initially, before the program uses this variable, the value of that variable I is equal to 1. That is called. Similar kind of thing is for semaphore as well. The waiting list of tasks is always initially empty. To start with, whenever the RTOS is really enabled, then initially this particular list that should be empty. Waiting list should be empty. Okay, it should. That means there should not be some other task pending in the previous operations, previous time operations. That should not arise over here. So that is what the important constraint here. Now, semaphore management functions are going to be what? Now, simply create a semaphore, delete a semaphore, acquire a semaphore. Okay. After creating semaphore, the same semaphore can be used by many tasks. The next is acquire semaphore. That means already the semaphore is there. If some tasks want to acquire it, they can acquire it. Release semaphore, query a semaphore, right? So like this we can have. Now, the one more important point of shared resource problem is a deadlock. So a deadlock, also called as deadly embrace, is a situation in which two tasks are each unknowingly waiting for the resources held by the other. That means waiting for the resources held by the other or stopped by the other. Say for example, task 1 known as T1 has exclusive access to resource R1. Task T2 has exclusive access to R2. Exclusive means what? Nobody else can use that. Continuously only this guy can use. Now in this process, if T1 needs exclusive access to R2 and T2 needs exclusive access to R1, that means T1 is waiting to get exclusive access to R2, T2 is waiting to get exclusive access to R1. Neither task can continue. They are called deadlock situations. So T1 has to perform after it gets access to R2. And the T2 has to perform its activity after it gets access to R1, which never happened. Therefore, deadlock situation arises. Okay, that is what called deadlock. Nothing can be done, just everything is halted. Just in a waiting period. Getting halted in waiting period, that is dangerous. Halting in a waiting period is a very dangerous situation. It is really very dangerous situation in the real-time operating systems. So the simplest way to avoid deadlock is for the two tasks to acquire. Now this is how we avoid deadlocking. That is what in mutex we do this job now. That is called acquire all the resources before proceeding. All the resources means what? T1 want to have access to R2, T2 want to have access to R1 resource. Now, before the activity starts, it has to acquire all the resources before proceeding. Acquire the resource in the same order, of course, or because scheduler is involved here, so order is also involved here. And release the resources in the reverse order. We acquire the resources in an order and we release the resources in the reverse order. So most RTOS allows you to specify timeout when acquiring the semaphores. Obviously, RTOS means time related job. So therefore timeout is very important. That means in what time this particular semaphore is going to get released, that has to be predefined. So these features allow the deadlock to be broken. So deadlock, why it is coming? Deadlock is purely coming because of some external resource sending an interrupt to the processor. So to the task, there the disturbance comes. That situation is called deadlock for us. So mutex, mutex is the one which really incorporates all this. Therefore, it is a better approach to access the shared resource. It solves the problem of shared resource priority inversions. So mutex stands for mutual exclusion. It is used for resource synchronization and task synchronization. Same method. Semaphores. Semaphore it is the part of the semaphore. It is one of the type of the semaphore. It's called mutex. So semaphores is known as the resource synchronization and task synchronization method. It can be achieved through following mechanisms like disabling the interrupts, disabling the scheduler by test and set operations, and then utilization of the semaphores. That means interrupt schedulers are going to get disabled. So no interrupt, no scheduler will disturb the process while it is going on. So that is what the important task which we'll do. The next point is going to be pipes. Pipes are like message queue functions. What is a pipe? What is a queue? So pipe is like a message queue functions. We know pipe continuously, there are going to be sequence of messages being sent one after the other in a pipe. Okay, that is basically called a pipe. So a message pipe or simply a message pipe or simply pipe in strict sense is an IPC queue between two given interconnected tasks or two set of tasks. A message pipe or simply a pipe is a strict sense. In strict sense is an inter-process communication queue. So it is basically inter-process communication queue. That means continuously handshaking will be done here. Inter-process communication queue. Not simply transferring the message. So along with transferring message, it is normally going to perform inter-process communications. Unlike queues and mailboxes, pipes have the limited size. Okay. So to perform these inter-process communications, it is going to have the unlimited size. Okay, it's going to have a limited size. Pipes have unlimited size. So yeah, this is what the difference here. Mailboxes, queues are going to have predefined sizes, whereas pipes have unlimited sizes. There is no size prescribed for the pipes. So in a pipe, there may be no fixed number of bytes per message also. That means the size of the bytes, size of the packets is also not fixed. Where we use pipes in the client server network technology. Okay. Now, what is the basic structure of a pipe, architecture of a pipe now? There is a task one, there is a task two. Task one will write some data to the pipe. Task two will read the data from the pipe. Therefore, it is nothing but task to task. And instead of task, you may have interrupt service routine. There may be interrupt coming here. To task, data transfer can take place using the pipes. So we can have transfer of data and transfer of data from ISRs. Transfer of interrupts between two tasks can be done by using the pipes. So therefore, pipes can be used for inter-process communications. So this is inter-process. This is one process. This is going to be another process. Task is also known as a process. Don't get say that. Don't get be an impression that task is different with a process. Just now I spoke to you. So task and interrupt are nothing but the software entities, right? Using which we normally going to access the resources. Okay. Next, one task may send data packets to one pipe. Another task may read the same data packets from another side. Another task may send acknowledgements through other as shown below. Now, there could be two pipelines connected between the two tasks. Now, in this case here, one task is going to send the data, another task is going to send the acknowledgements. Another pipe is going to send the acknowledgements. Like this, to speed up the activity, we can normally going to use double pipes. So while using the pipes, we have to define the pipe length, pipe ID, length of the pipe, maximum length not defined in same ARTOS, and its initial values, if at all going to be there. So what are the features of a pipe generally? Now we know a pipe in general, each pipe for a message may need initialization before using functions in the scheduler for the message pipes. So there should be some initialization, if at all there, you have to initialize them. There may be a provision for multiple connections of the pipes for multiple destinations of the messages. One pipe can be connected to multiple devices in the network. So a number of clients can thus connect to a server. Many clients can connect to a server using the pipe, via the pipe. So pipes are used as a shell commands in the Unix and Linux operating systems. Now, what is the command we use here? That is called, this is called a symbol for pipe here. So here, create a pipe, open a pipe, close a pipe, or the implementation functions to have a pipe. That means at the shell level, at a command prompt level, if you type this, means what? You are simply reading from the pipe. Pipe is already there, created. You want to take some data from the pipe. So as a whole, what we can say now, ARTOS handles inter-process communications between the multiple tasks. That means we speak ARTOS in terms of only tasks. If there is no task, there is no ARTOS. So ARTOS is going to implement its operations, implement its functionalities by using the tasks. So therefore, task is nothing but a software tool used in the ARTOS. So ARTOS provides the provides the following interprocess communications called signals, semaphores, mutexes, queues, mailboxes, pipes, event registers, etc. So a mailbox may either provide for only one message or multiple messages in a ARTOS. So that's what we discussed. Mailbox can be only one or it can be multiple. So if it is going to be multiple, it can provide multiple messages in an ARTOS. So a queue is a collection or series of mailboxes. So if you have an array of mailboxes, it is known as a queue. Okay. A pipe is a queue or a stream of messages that connects the two different tasks for inter-process communications. So this word, you have to use it here for inter-process communication. Signal is 1-bit output to indicate an event. So why we use a signal is normally to use it to indicate an event that is happening in the real-time operating system. So these are the basic things which are there for the inter-task communication activities we perform by using the semaphores, mailboxes, queues, pipes, all those things. And one more last one is left over is event register. In next class, we deal with the event registers. Thank you very much for today's session.